Alright guys, so first thing we're going to do here is, this is part of the CB install. We've got the CB Cobra 75WX ST. I don't know how old it is. I've had it sitting in my garage for a really long time. I think I got it out of a trade-in vehicle that somebody traded in the vehicle, didn't want the extra stuff that they'd installed on it, so it was just going to auction, so I grabbed it out of there, talked to them, they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead and take it. So I got the cable, power with the fuse and everything. So we'll make sure there's a fuse in there, but I'm going to hook this up and actually make sure that it works before I go through the trouble of installing it. So we'll be right back. Alright, so I'm going to use the battery here to just use some jumper leads off the power, positive and negative. Just a tip, like I always try to make my jumper leads color coded. I have at least one of red and one of black, so then I can keep them straight, especially if I'm remote diagnosing something. I've got the red for the positive and the black for the negative. So we got it hooked up here. We've got it just plugged in down here. You can see the gator clips are just hooked in. The fuse is in there. It looked good. I'm running over here. Everything looks like it's hooked up. So we're going to turn this baby on and see if she fires up. Oh man, look at that. All right, so we look like we're good to go. So now we know that the install won't be for nothing, and we should be able to tune it up and everything once we get it all together. So we'll move on to the next part. Passenger side, sorry. The instructions for the glove box say to remove all these screws. There's 3 up here, and then there's 2 on either side of the handle. 1 here, 2 here, and 2 here. Now they say that's the hard part, is getting these screws out. So we'll see how that goes. Also, across the dash, we've got screws 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then let's see, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 across, and then 2 down here. So also I'm going to be wiring in fog lights and a power switch for the CB install. Also, while I'm in here, I'm going to be looking for a good place to put the CB. So we will get started on all this and see how it goes. Since I've got everything pulled apart on the dash, what I'm trying to do is figure out a place to mount the CB. As you saw with the video when I tested it, or the part of the video when I tested it, it's a handheld device, so everything's in the hand mic, and then you just have that little box that controls everything else. So I'm trying to figure out where's a good place to mount that underneath the dash so that it's hidden, but also I'm trying also to make it easily accessible, but as well as I'm going to try and run, because it has an aux output for speakers, I'm going to try and run that from the little box device, the power unit, out to my stereo, and be able to run all that at the same time. I think. All right, on the driver's side, on the engine side of the firewall, if you pull the harness and pop this little connector free, there's a grommet right there. I don't know if it was like that from the previous owner or if that's from the factory, but I'm going to pop that sucker out and use that for my wiring for the fog lights and for the CB radio. What's up everybody? Day 2 of doing dash work on the YJ. Ran into a bunch of waves of rain rolling through yesterday. Didn't get everything done that I wanted to, so we're on day 2. I'm going to end up splicing all this video together to do a couple different videos of all the different work I'm doing. So we got the dash lights done yesterday, got the fog lights wired up, got the security dash glove box put in, and then all we got to do now is wire up the CB. So we'll get going here and finish this up. Alright, so here's the glove box from Smitty Built. I'm going to try and mount that CB unit in here somehow. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do it. There are some holes there for access that I might be able to run the cables through, but we'll play with that and I'll check back with you guys when I get everything done. But got this panel made down here for accessory switches. So that switch there I'm going to be using for my CB because I want to actually have it be able to be powered on all the time. the fuse panel up above is really hard to get to, and I just don't want to mess with it. So I'm just going to run power straight from and to the battery, especially because it's a CB. Using that will probably be a little bit better. But we'll get going here and hopefully wrap this up in the next couple hours. All right, guys, here we are. I have Tuffy security box. Played with a couple different ideas and decided I had these grommets sitting around. So I decided with a couple different ideas, played with a couple different ideas. There's holes in the top of this to, you know, play with, and I tried fishing stuff through there, but it just didn't allow for this to sit how I liked it in there. So what I did was I actually took a 3/4 inch hole saw, or you can use like a 3/4 inch step drill bit, and drilled out 2 holes, one there and one there, and then use these grommets, sorry, not 3/4, 7/8 hole saw, and now I'm running everything down through there. So you can see I got the CB cable coming this way, and then the power and the microphone, and actually the external speaker, because what I'm going to try and do is plug this into my stereo once it get everything finished wiring up and see how it works, because I've heard you can do that and it'll actually play through your speaker system when you're out on the trail. So, but I got the antenna cable plugged in there. I just used 2 metal screws. You can see I originally had it in there horizontally, but because of the cable it wasn't high enough. So, but we'll keep rolling here and see how this goes. But yeah, just a couple of grommets. I actually used like a pair of spreading pliers, like snap ring spreading pliers, to widen that rubber grommet up big enough to allow for this guy to fit through, because that's actually bigger than the grommet is. But also for the CB cable too, I had to do the same thing, and it just stretches it out big enough. I got this whole kit from Harbor Freight a long time ago. I'm sure they still have them. They're a couple bucks, but it's really great to have, especially if you're running wires like this and you want to protect them and not run the big corrugated protection sleeve. So we'll keep going here and keep pressing on. What is up, guys? So right now today we are going to wire in the power for the CB radio using a relay and a switch. We're not going to direct wire. You can do it that way, but it's kind of hard, especially if you want to do a switch. You don't want to run all that power directly through a switch. Most of them aren't rated for that kind of power. So we're gonna wire up a switch so that I can have it running whether the car's on or off, and have it actually wired to a relay directly off the battery. So let's get to it. Okay, so here's the switch we're gonna use. I kind of found this one. It was actually in the Jeep when I bought it. Kind of like it. It's a little bit of a dead man switch kind of deal, or whatever you want to call it. I just like the little toggle piece here. So I'm not a huge fan of screwing wire terminals together. I tried doing some of the push-on ones, but they don't seem to fit, and I don't want to take the time to try and file off the threads and everything. So we're gonna give this a shot and see how it goes. But I like how big this is because it'll help me remember, because like I said, I want to have it on or off if the engine's running. I just want to be able to leave it on all the time if I'm let the engine stop running for some reason while not on the trail. But I like this because it's so big, I'm not going to miss it if I get out of the vehicle. So we've got the 2 screws here, and what we're doing is we're actually going to find a spot underneath the dash on the fuse panel that's live all the time, and wire the power to this. Now you can run power for a relay directly through a switch, because all the relay does is, all this is going to do is turn the relay on and off, and it doesn't draw that much power. If I was to actually run the CB or a stereo or something else through this switch directly, or even lights, there's a possibility you can burn out this switch really quickly, because it's gonna just burn it up, because there's too much amperage going through here for what it's rated for. And this switch might even be burned out. I don't know, I haven't checked it yet, because like I said, he had it in here and it was wired into something, but I just pulled all the wiring out and moved on. So we're going to check the switch, we're going to find some power underneath the dash that's live, and then we're going to run the cables through the firewall out to the relay I have mounted underneath the hood right at the battery, because I want to have this radio with as best grounding as I can to get the best range out of it. So we're gonna go ahead and get all that power and everything grounded directly to the battery, give it the best ground as possible. So like I said, I'm not a pro at wiring up these CBs and anything, but I've done this before with other stuff that I've run in my vehicles, and it seems to work pretty well. So we'll get going here and get it started. Okay, I'm under here under the dash, looking for the fuse. See if I can get a shot of this. So this is just a normal test lamp. I got it grounded right here to the bolt where the e-brake mechanism's built. And I'm just probing in here, making contact with the metal terminals in there, seeing what is provided live power. And when it lights up like that, boom, I got 12 volts. So there's two terminals right here. They're labeled for the clock. Now the clock in this thing actually gets its power from somewhere else because it's always live. I'm assuming this is probably for a digital clock to keep the battery life alive or whatever, but it should be enough for us to be able to power based off of how bright that is. That should be 12 volts. So we're gonna go ahead and use that, wire in a wire with a spade terminal that'll fit in there, and then connect it to the switch over here. There. All right, so there's a spade terminal, and electrical is all about physical and conductive connectivity. So this provides doing a crimp like this does a great physical connection. But what you want to do, and what I do at least, is I'll actually solder this onto the spade here real quick, and just put a little bit of solder right there on the tip of the cable where the wire is exposed, and that'll give me a good conductivity connection. But your crimps, you just want to make sure they're nice and tight, everything looks good. So I'll cut my wires a little longer so that I can have that little extra sticking out there, and so I can do the soldering. So we'll do that real quick. All right, there we go. So you can see the solder's on there. See if it'll focus. I did burn that plastic insulation. I'll just cut that off and put some a heat shrink on it. But that's all it took real quick. And I use, funny enough, I just use a torch. I'll do a video on soldering. Everybody's got their own method and ways. This way works really well for me, especially in automotive when you're trying to get in tight in spaces where you can't necessarily get a true soldering iron. You can get this in there, get the heat where you need it to go, and it's so much faster. Coming from the automotive repair industry, this was the way that we did everything, just because it was so much quicker. But I'll get a video out about that in the near future here. Okay, so see if I can do this here. I've got a hot wire set up into the fuse panel and connected to the switch. And now when I turn on the switch, boom, lights up. So now I know that the switch is good, everything's working, and we should be good to go. So let's see if I can balance my phone in the right spot here. All right, so on, off, on, off. So now when you're wiring everything else, you just need to be careful because that's hot. It's going to be constantly hot, so you don't want to go touching it and dicking around with all the connections and everything. What I did was I attached the screw first, and then I plugged it in. So if I need to do anything with this with the switch, I got to remember to unplug that first. All right, guys, so got the wiring through the firewall. This little tool here is amazing for helping out with this. Got a really sharp point on that end, and you can actually use it to pierce through grommets so you don't have to cut into them or try to cut holes themselves. But it's actually hollow all the way through, so you can get this through the grommet, then feed a couple wires through, pull it out, do what you need to do that way. But biggest thing right now is that we got the switch wired up. As you can see, I got the test light there in in the battery, and it just clipped to the end of the wire on the battery, or on the switch wire. So when I turn the switch on, now the test light lights up. So I know that I've got power going to my relay, or what will be the relay. So as you can see under here, I don't really like the way this is done, but I'm just kind of going with what I got here. So the wires are just wrapped around. Make sure that when you do this, you wrap the wires in the direction that the screw is going to be tightening, so then it actually grabs them and twists it around with the screw and actually grabs everything tighter. So if you put it the other way, it'll actually try to unravel the ends of the cable and cause problems for you. But so we'll keep going with the next part and get that relay wired in. All right, so we're wiring in the fused power lead and ground for the actual CB unit now, but this is what I was talking about with those in the other videos. I've talked about marine grade or waterproof connections and all that. I soldered everything together, the wires underneath, and then this heat shrink actually has glue in there. You can see it sticking out the sides. It actually makes a waterproof connection. So if you want to make sure you don't have any issues down the road, this is what you need to do to make sure that you don't have any corrosion at the joints, and don't use those stupid butt connectors. They work in a pinch, but this is the better way to do it. All right, so got everything wired up and sort of dressed up underneath. It's underneath, so is what it is. But now with the switch off, the radio's off. Turn that on. The radio itself is on. Now put the switch up, turn the switch on. Boom. So you should be good. Look it off, it's off. So now I can have the radio on even when the truck's off, and keep comms with other people. So next in the series, we will go over the antenna cable routing, and also do tuning of the radio itself. So hope this helped. Like I said, I got everything wired into the glove box there. So hope this helps. If you got any questions, let me know. Leave comments below. Hit the like, subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Bye.